Good morning.
Good morning. Say hi, Cooper.
Today you have the whole crew. Julia,
Nick, Cooper.
Cooper. He probably won't stick around for the whole thing, but we are all squished into our chair. Um, and today we wanted to talk about couples therapy slash couples coaching. And bye, Cooper. Um, and we thought that it would be fun to talk about couples coaching because we do it as a couple, and for us it's been really useful in our relationship, and I think made it a better relationship.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think that there might be some stigma around going to talk to a coach or talk to a therapist, like definitely individually and maybe even more so as a couple. Do you think there's a stigma, or why do you think there's a stigma if there is one?
Um, well, I can only, I guess, speak for my gender,
Yeah, sure,
but
that's valuable.
I think sometimes men fall into the category of not understanding fully like the importance of coaching, or they've had a bad experience uh, with a coach or mentor or teacher. So I think it's really important that if you're finding someone that you find someone that you both want to emulate,
Hmm.
or if it's a couple or someone that represents both your values.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point that sometimes you like find a coach or a therapist that you also don't connect with, and that it's important to keep looking and to know that you might have to talk to a few different people before you find someone that you really feel like connected with and feel like it's really a good relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, we're gonna share three things on why we do it. Like, why do we think it's important for us in our own relationship? And then we're going to share the three ways that we have done therapy and coaching because we've been together for coming up on 3 years, but we've already gone through three different like coaching programs.
I don't know what that says about us, but hey.
Well, we are also coaches, so I think it just means that we believe in what we do.
Okay. Agreed.
Agreed. Decide to agree. Um, all right. Okay. So do you want to start off with the first reason we do it?
Sure. Why? Reason number one of
Yeah.
why we pursue coaching is that um, we learn more about each other, especially like on a deeper level, much beyond just surface level. But I think it's really understanding each other's truths, and I think it also helps us learn to hold space for one another, or the coach or mentor or therapist helps facilitate that space for learning.
Yeah, definitely. The second one is that we learn more about ourselves and like specifically how we show up in the relationship. And I can speak for myself that even in the most recent session we had, there were some things that came up that like I thought I acted one way or that I showed up one way, but I think that by working with a coach or just a third party, they can kind of reflect back to you what either your partner's saying or what they're observing in a way that when we're in our heads, we might be making assumptions about how we actually show up, and those assumptions might be wrong. So it's kind of good to really reflect on how am I actually showing up in the relationship, and like what is the outcome of that, and if I want to see different outcomes, um, how should I show up differently, and how could I make that happen? Yeah.
Cool. All right, so the third and final, I mean, there's probably a lot more, but the three that we're focusing on, the third one is, uh, help, I mentioned it earlier, but help hold space for healing and growth in the relationship. So there's a better alignment around um, how we can support each other's growth and learning. So that healing component, and just maybe in a way like a couple that learns together has a better potential of staying together.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as individuals and as relationships, our lives go, change is a constant. And so it's really important that, there's always room for growth and learning in the relationship. Certainly as life likes to throw challenges and changes our way. So there's always something to be learning about ourselves and how we're showing up in our relationship. So I think really at the end, it's about honoring the commitment to each other and understanding and having the motivation to be your best self and be your best self in the relationship.
Yeah, beautifully stated. And I think one thing I would add to that is how, just to Nick's point of like things are always changing, and just like the opportunity to learn together is the opportunity to stay together. And I think for me, at least, I can say when we go, a lot of times we go into a coaching program as a couple when kind of when things are good and like when things are consistent, but it's like knowing that things are going to change, or like almost like the best offense is a good defense kind of deal. Like if you have that space, then when things come up, you're able to process it and actually move forward rather than like waiting for something to get to a point where you feel like you need an intervention or something. But actually like just having that space be something that is part of your relationship all the time, just because we do know that change is a constant. Okay, and then we're going to share just briefly like the ways that we work with coaches and therapists, and there are 3 of them, just so you guys have some like examples of what it might look like and what types of people you might seek out if you're with a partner or in the future might be with a partner and think that it's a good idea for couples to go and get coaching together. So these are just the examples of what we've done. There are a lot of different ways you can be coached or see a therapist as a couple, but should I start with the first one? You want to start?
You can go for it.
All right. So the first one is we worked with a couple, an older couple, in person in Minneapolis. So we would go and sit in their office, just like kind of like a therapist office, but instead of 2 of us, there were actually 4 of us. So a man and a woman, and then Nick and myself. And the things that we really got out of that coaching experience were, 1, we wrote a vision for our partnership. We actually wrote down like what we want to see and kind of what our commitments are to make that happen. And we still have that in a variety of different forms a few years down the line, that we rewrite and revisit. So that was really valuable. And then the second part from that couples coaching experience was having connection rituals. So like physical connection rituals, physical and with our breath, finding ways to be more deeply connected with each other. And I think a lot of those kind of come from the Tantra lineage. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that was a really wonderful first experience with working with a couples coach. And then
so the second was a younger couple based out of Perth, Australia, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in Australia.
But we just found them through I guess through Instagram, or you did.
Yeah.
I think it was Living in Love.
Mm-hmm. Living in Love, Kat and Tully.
Yeah, Living in Love. And it was an online-based course, and our biggest takeaways with that was, I think, mostly centered around like understanding masculine and feminine energies, and how practices we can use so men can feel more masculine and women can feel more feminine, and vice versa. It's also important for men to also be in touch with their feminine side too. And I think maybe for women to also tap into the masculine at times. There was also a big component of self-sabotage that we talked about, how we can be weary of self-sabotaging, or the ways that we might self-sabotage the relationship or ourselves. And then there was one other one, support each other in his or her unique differences.
Which kind of goes back to the feminine and masculine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked, so like the format was they did an online like webinar every week that you could join live, and it was like 5 a.m. for us. So some of them we didn't join live. We just watched after the fact. I think Nick joined one live. I don't think I joined any live.
One live, yeah.
But there was a weekly video for 6 weeks, and then there were like practices or kind of like homework that we did, and then there was a private Facebook group where we all hung out and could kind of share what we were doing with each other. And that was kind of a cool format, and like Nick said, the couple was younger, so it felt a little bit closer to kind of where we were at in our life stage. But also, I think there's a trade-off between people who are a little older, who have a little bit more wisdom accumulated, and people who are younger, who might have more like new information to share, but don't have as much accumulated experience. So just to know that. And then the final one that we actually did on Wednesday is we went to see a solo female therapist who.
She's like a licensed
she's
family marriage counselor.
Okay. A licensed family marriage counselor.
Anyway, it wasn't just some random.
Well, no. It's someone that there was a good reason for us to go talk to this woman in particular. But I'm just trying to say demographically, like there was an older couple, there was a younger couple, and then there was anyways. And we had done a survey kind of thing beforehand, each of us individually. It's called Prepare Enrich, and it helps us to see kind of like where our strengths are, where we align, and then where our growth areas are. So where maybe we are not quite as aligned in terms of like our strengths or our priorities. So it just kind of helps to like chart out, like literally there were visuals when we went to see her. She had these printed out reports about our relationship where we could see these like bar charts of our answers and where they matched with each other, kind of where they were off and on. And she coached us through it for an hour and a half of like, what does this report mean? And what can we do to work on these different areas? And I found it to be really useful.
Yeah. It's like a snapshot of like the current state, or how the current state of the relationship. It's like a snapshot in time. And then there's also worksheets that the course gives you to help you kind of understand, or areas for areas of growth.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like ways to facilitate that.
Yeah, there's some additional support there.
And I guess they actually recommend doing it for 8 sessions. But because I am in Minneapolis now, but we'll be back in Cambridge next week, we could only do 1. So we kind of have the worksheets to go off of. And obviously we're inclined to work on that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I think we'll keep going with it. So if you have any questions about seeing a coach or a therapist or a family certified lady, as a couple, feel free to send them as a message or put them in the comments. And we do, inside the Rise membership, have a relationship coach and a whole set of content around relationships, because we both know how, Nick and I, and then within the Rise team, we know how important having really healthy relationships are for your overall like health and happiness and even professional success. So if you do want to look more into being a member of Rise, we're launching April 1st, and you can click the link, the Learn More link on our page. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Back to bed.
All right, thanks for joining us.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye guys.